Hey guys, it's Charlie, and this week you are watching Our Pagan Opinions on Wednesday, and we're talking about what religion were we raised, and what were our turnoffs to the religion. So I just actually filmed a video, and it was like 15 minutes long, and then I was like, no, that's too long. So I'm going to try to condense it. I've spoken about this kind of throughout my personal channel, so if you've watched my personal channel, you've probably picked things up here and there. I'm going to be talking kind of quickly so I can get through this. And I'm going to try to keep it as brief as possible so that, for one, it doesn't take forever to upload, and two, you guys aren't sitting here being bored out of your minds talking about, you know, listening to me talk. Because I feel like people get bored when I talk, even though you guys say that you don't. I feel like, you know, I wouldn't want to listen to me talk for 30 minutes or whatever. So anyway, here we go. So I was not raised any particular religion. However, when we did practice a religion, we always practiced Christianity. And at a time in my life, we were actually very devout Christians, myself included. Anything that happened to me in school, I'd come back, talk it out with my mom, you know, have a little bit of therapy session, whatever, and she'd always ask, what do you think Jesus would do? And I always made my decisions based on what would Jesus do. And to this day, I mean, you know, sometimes I guess you can still kind of think that maybe I do make my decisions based on what would Jesus do? What would an enlightened master do? What would someone who has achieved enlightenment and self-awareness and self-actualization, what would they do? And, you know, I still base some of my decisions on that, or at least strive to become that. Starting back from the beginning, I was born to a single mother. I didn't get baptized until I was 4 because, what was the purpose, you know? And I haven't baptized Nozomi, and the reason I haven't baptized Nozomi is because I want her to be to the age of reason where she can make sense for herself. Does she want to be baptized? And no, I haven't had any caffeine. I'm just trying to get this done because I have a lot of work to do tonight for my actual job. So, I was baptized when I was 4, and then there was like a lull period where we went to church sometimes, but not really. And then when I was like 10 or 11, or I'm sorry, like 9 or 10, I told my mom, I was like, hey, I want to start going to church more because all the kids that I went to school with went to church. So we started going to church. We went to this really small church. It was a Free Methodist church, so it was non-denominational. And we were really active in that church. I went to CLC classes every Wednesday, which CLC stands for Christian Learning Club, and is basically like the non-denominational form of CCD, like what Catholics go to. So I did that for 2 hours on every Wednesday night, and then I'd have some homework for the week. And then on Sunday, we went to church for 2 hours. The first hour was Sunday school. The second hour was the sermon. And it was pretty good for a few years. And then like some really personal stuff happened in my life that I'm not going to get into right here. Probably will never get into on YouTube, but basically my family fell apart and we stopped going to church. Most people who are Christian, I think that at that point they would cling to God even more, but we didn't. And that was probably a little bit after I had found Wicca. I started finding Wicca while I was still in church, and I was really interested in it, but my Christian guilt kind of kept pulling me back. And I kind of practiced it and studied it on and off for good like 6 years. And then when I was about like 16, or I'm sorry, yeah, like 16 or 17, I just like, whatever, no spirituality for me at all. I didn't think about what happens when after you die. I didn't think about if there was a God. I just basically was like, fuck it all. It wasn't in my thought process. I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking about living in the moment and enjoying life on the planet. So, as far as what I liked about, what I didn't like about it, or what were the turnoffs for me, as I got older, I started noticing this element of insincerity with certain Christians, specifically the ones that were in my church and in different churches that I visited with friends, is specifically with the adults, not even so much the kids. I think the kids had enough like natural innocence and natural love already in them that they just kind of shone brightly with that, with something that is innate in all children. But with adults who kind of lose that light and that glow throughout, you know, the hardening of becoming an adult, I saw this mask, this facade, this it's not real, it's not sincere. There was like this fake, passive-aggressive nice, and it really turned me off, and it kind of creeped me out a little bit if I'm going to be completely honest. So, also what turned me off to it is, like, I learned, like, I always had these ideas in my soul, in my spirit, inside of me, knowing that there were certain things that worked certain ways. I just felt like this is how it should be. And then as I got into like New Age stuff and more into paganism, I found out like, wow, I'm not the only person that has these same kind of philosophies. Like, I'm reading these authors that are all supposed to be like these enlightened masters, and they're talking about these types of things. So obviously I've tapped into some sort of like source somewhere that has these ideas. I didn't just think them up out of thin air because other people had these same ideas. And I believe it's all part of the collective consciousness. And once you reach critical mass, it'll just kind of be something that humans just know instinctively. So after I started kind of getting into that, then I realized, okay, everything that's been fed to me has been a lie, and then I started seeking out information to kind of prove myself right. And I found a lot of information about how, like, there were like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books in the Bible, and then in like 327 Common Era, like fucking Constantine just went and like abolished like all of these different books because they didn't serve the purpose of the new church, which was like a holy like fucking political drive to fuel his own power. So really, like, modern day Christians didn't have a chance at all. It's totally unfair, in my opinion, because he just, in order to fuel his political agenda, he had all these things just completely taken out of the Bible, and things changed. So now you're looking at, when you're reading the Bible and you're looking at the Bible, it's not a full, complete piece of literature. It's things are removed, things are taken out, things are rearranged. So when you're reading it, you're not reading it in context. And for me, I believe that in order for something to be an absolute truth, it has to be presented in context and in its entirety. And I feel like the Christian Bible doesn't have that, but so many people don't. Okay, so I'm not sure how much time I actually have left on this because my camera just beeped at me and I don't know where it cut me off, but it said that I didn't have enough HD memory. So anyway, I just felt like there was just this lack of sincerity, but about like specifically like adults on the Christian path. And that's really what turned me off the most to it. And also, I mean, I was questioning like all of these different things, and like I stated, and it just, to me, if something's going to be an absolute truth, then it needs to be a truth in its entirety, placed correctly within context. And if you take all these books out of the Bible and you rearrange the Bible and you do it to fulfill some sort of bullshit political agenda, then what does that do? It creates half a truth, which to me is not a truth at all. And it takes things out of context, and you don't know what's there and what's missing because all you have is what's left. So you don't know what's missing. I mean, they've uncovered some that had been taken out, and like, you know, you have like the Apocrypha, which I don't believe was actually officially removed until like the 1800s at some point, I think. But basically, I touch on all the points that didn't make sense, the points that didn't click together in my More Questions for Christians video, which I will try to remember to link in the description box below. But that video is, I think it's pretty lengthy, but it covers a lot of historical and scientific, even in some points, fact. And so I think that's able, usually when I have Christians who are asking me questions and telling me that I'm wrong, I say watch that video first, and if you can come up with any valid points on that video and you know, basically give me any valid rebuttals on it, then we can talk. But if not, then just move along, because then if I know more about your religion than you do, historically, I don't want to have this conversation with you. So basically, that was the thing that mostly turned me off. I think that Christianity has a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful message, but I think that it's so watered down and so diluted and so intertwined with a bunch of bullshit because it's so tied to politics. And there's so much politics inside of Christianity. And if people would just listen to the overall message that Christ had given as an enlightened spiritual master, instead of sitting here and trying to pick apart different parts of the Bible to follow, gay marriage is wrong and a man should never lie next to another man. But at the same time, the Bible also tells you that, like, all this other stuff, like, you know, it's okay to, like, fucking, like, kill your kids if they speak before they're asked the question. Like, that's bullshit to me in this particular society. So when people are picking and choosing different parts of the Bible, because it is a holy book, and because my path doesn't have a holy book, that's one of the reasons my path doesn't have a holy book, is because it's not static. Right and wrong are concepts that change from place to place and from time to time. It's not static. It's not something that 500 years from now, what we consider in Wisconsin, in the United States of America, to be right and wrong is not going to be the exact same for someone in Australia 500 years from now. It's just not going to happen, because it's not static. Things change because it's all a matter of perception, and it's all a matter of our placement within the universe in relation to other things. It's all based on relativity. So those are the things that really kind of turned me off, is because, for one, there seemed to be a lack of sincerity and a big, huge fake facade of kindness that I didn't think was actually genuine from the heart and from, like, loving other human beings and other creatures. And the second thing was that anyone who I asked about this was so evasive. Like, no one had answers, and if they did have answers, they differed from some other Christians' answers. And like I mentioned in the video, More Questions for Christians, if something is going to be a truth, it's going to be an absolute truth. I don't think that as pagans, and I'm not meaning for this to come off as like a Christian bashing video, because I have the utmost respect for people who really truly do follow the message of Christ, because I think it's a beautiful message and I actually incorporate Christ into my own practice. But I do have a problem with people like, no, I'm not going to budge. This is right and everything else is wrong. I don't agree with that, because there's more than one door to get into a building. There's more than one way, one stream to get to the ocean. And one stream is no better than another. Some might be faster, some might be less tumultuous and maybe like, an easier ride, but there's more than one way to get to the ocean. If you're taking a stream, it doesn't matter what fucking stream you take. And the thing that I don't like, and pagans are just as guilty of this, of pointing other fingers and saying, you're not doing this right, you're not doing this right, and I think that that's a load of BS too, because how do you know? All you can ever know is the world based with your own experience and your own interaction with the world. You don't know my interaction with the world. You don't know what's right and wrong for me, and you can't make that decision because you're not me. And the same thing with me. I can't make decisions. I can make observations and say, hey, based on what I'm seeing, like this kind of seems like how it is, and maybe this might help you. And likewise, you can give me the same advice. But I think that on that particular path, so many people were so quick to just judge and say, listen, blah, 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 blah. And that's honestly one of the reasons that I'm not involved in a coven, is because I feel like there's that same kind of level of superiority, or that same, I don't want to say hierarchy, but that same level of, like, I know more, and what I know is the right information. Those people out there who are solitaries and they don't know the secret craft name of the gods and goddesses, they don't know what they're talking about, that I also don't agree with. Because I know, at least in my experience and my perception and my reality and my interaction with the universe around me, I know that what's right for me is not to follow those very strict, very rigid rules. But that is right for some people, because some people, that's how they thrive. And for me it wasn't, and that was one of the reasons that it turned me off. So 2 main reasons, kind of like fakeness, and also kind of like this narrow-mindedness. And we obviously, I mean, that's not something that's just very religious based, or it's very rooted in one particular spiritual path. That's something that's just rooted in humanity in general. So no matter where you go, where there are groups of humans gathering together, you're going to run into that. And it has nothing against the faith itself. I just found that my personal truths very much more so melded on the path that I'm currently on, which is a very eclectic, very individual path, unique to myself and my experience and interaction with the world. And other people, their preference is on those paths that maybe have already been laid out in a little bit more, I take the road less traveled. That's what I'm trying to say. So hopefully you guys enjoyed me talking very quickly and rambling on, and I will talk to you guys all next Wednesday. I love you so much. Blessed be.